Giddy up! It's time for another round of free marketplace content. Gallop away on a brand new horse with nearly 70 animations to choose from, power up your characters with flashy Niagara effects, dive into the Brief Kit, then take to the shores to wander through an expansive stone pine forest before settling down in a modular medieval environment. Snag all of them before May runs out on the UE Marketplace, and soar through the skies with a commercial long-range aircraft now part of our permanently free collection. And speaking of planes, we'd like to introduce the Antoinette Project, a suite of resources that illustrate how to create your own flight simulator with Unreal Engine. This research project includes a proof of concept demonstration utilizing readily available technology and a DIY tutorial. Everything you need to get started landed on the Unreal Engine feed at unrealengine.com/feed. With Unreal Engine 5, the internal physics engine Chaos ships as the default, replacing PhysX. Physics Engineering Director Michael Lentine discusses the current state of UE5 physics and touches on the ongoing work that will be done for 5.1. Read Chaos Scene Queries and Rigid Body Engine in UE5 on the feed to get the scoop. If that's not enough chaos for you, watch our new presentation, Driving Around, Exploring Chaos Vehicles, on the Unreal Engine YouTube channel to get under the hood of the lightweight system for performing vehicle physics simulations. In this video, we go over the system's features, the basics on how to set up your own wheeled vehicle from scratch, and tips and tricks to achieve the driving feel you need. When MetaHuman Creator was released, we got to see the world's first portable real-time facial rig in action. Our latest white paper, Rig Logic, Runtime Evaluation of MetaHuman Face Rigs, explains the technical details behind 3Lateral's Rig Logic, the facial rig solver that comes with every MetaHuman. We share the reasoning behind the MetaHuman DNA file format and other decisions we made in building the Rig Logic system. Are you an educator? Do you see the value in interactive 3D but don't know where to start? Try our Unreal Educator Accelerator. It's a professional development program that teaches you everything you'd need to know to effectively incorporate interactive 3D into your coursework. Get started at unrealengine.com/educators/accelerator. When Flying Wild Hog decided to reboot classic 3D realm shooter Shadow Warrior, the team wanted to sanitize some of the cheesy one-liners and 90s crass humor of the original, but not so much that the game lost its character. That first reboot created enduring success that would become a foundation for a new series. Now, with Shadow Warrior 3 released earlier this year, we interviewed game director Cuba Open to discuss the team's refocus on a story that was historically an insane, bombastic adventure. Read the interview on the feed. Bouncing over to this week's spotlights from game developer Frozen Line, Daydream is a puzzle platformer in which you play as Griffin, a boy saved from the clutches of darkness by his best friend and teddy bear Burley. Plunge into the magical world to solve puzzles by wishlisting Daydream on Steam. Next up, we have a mysterious short film made in UE5 by Darker5 called The Gate. Get transported to a dark forest where our hero contemplates his life's journey, only to come upon an unexpected creature. Watch the complete film on their YouTube channel, linked in the description. And wrapping up this week's spotlights is an impressive cemetery depicting the resting place of a forgotten king by Rasmus Bogner Christensen. Ithra Cemetery represents foolishness, arrogance, and cruelty. Learn more about the dark fantasy piece and explore all of Christensen's great work on their ArtStation page. Thanks for watching this week's news and community spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and today with me we have the one, the only, the incredible Max, the creator of Hydroneer.
Hi, everyone.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Max?
Sure. So my name is Max, and I made Hydroneer just like that wonderful intro you just got from Tina. So Hydroneer is a mining game where you dig for gold and other resources to build massive mining machines. It's out on Steam. It came out in 2020 in May. And 2 years later now, we're just on the brink of the 2.0 major update coming out on Sunday. So yeah, it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's very soon. That is very, very soon.
Yep.
So yeah. It's fine. It'll be great. It'll go over great. um, Great intro for Hydroneer there. And with that, you brought us a fancy trailer that we can take a look at to know a
Yeah.
little bit more about it, right? I just love the company icon so much. Can I just say?
Yeah, there's a bit of a thing about that. So the studio is called Foulball Hangover, and it doesn't really mean anything. One night when me and my housemate we were drinking, coming up with random names of bad indie bands, and that just kind of came up, and then with a silly name had to come with a silly logo. So yeah, that's kind of where Foulball Hangover comes from.
It's perfect. So it's just everything absolutely random you could possibly throw together.
Yeah, pretty much. And I guess that's a little bit of Hydroneer is kind of in that as well, with how silly it is.
That's perfect. Well, I know that you came with a whole bunch of stuff that you're ready to show us today. But before we dive into all that really great stuff that you did bring, and also bit of a shameless promo on your side here. I do also know that you release a whole bunch of dev vlogs as well. So there's a bunch of content that people can also check out on there. We have that listed in our forum announcement. But for anybody who hasn't seen any of that content, perhaps, would you like to give us just kind of a rundown of what started Hydroneer, the original idea behind it, and just kind of the start of this process?
Yeah, sure. So I made Hydroneer a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago. I kind of started working on it. I had this YouTube channel at the time, and really really small YouTube channel, maybe like 30 or 40 subscribers. And I just wanted to make these weekly dev vlogs that eventually turned out to monthly ones, but we don't need to go into that. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of create a game from start to finish on YouTube and with Unreal Engine, and every week kind of just add a little bit more to it, tell people just show people what the process is of making that game and what my thought process is behind that. So you can actually, and I actually find this really insane, and sometimes I go back and watch those videos of like the first video of me with like a really bad microphone, and the resolutions are weird on the video, and it's really, really bad quality videos, but it's really interesting because it's like a little bit of history that you can go back and watch me ramble on about trying to make this video game. And at first I didn't really know what Hydroneer was going to be. I wanted to just make a digging game with some kind of machines in it. Inspired kind of by things like Minecraft, but I wanted things to be a little bit less open world and a bit more kind of concentrated on like dirt digging plots, kind of the things that you would see in real life. So it's a little bit mirrored it that way. And yeah, basically I started working on it kind of just with the idea of you have some water, you have a pan, a bucket, and a brush, and a shovel, and you shovel some dirt into that bucket, pour the bucket into the pan, put a bit of water in that pan, and then scrub it. And then that's kind of where the game started, and it just kind of evolved from there. It was a really interesting way of working because it was like I found my smallest minimum viable product. And that's just because using Unreal is really, really simple to just make a game, especially in blueprints as well. And an idiot like me who really doesn't like coding, Blueprints is just perfect for that because there's no written code. It's all just, you have a little box and you have a little noodle that connects to the next box. And even now, all I really do is Blueprint, and I love it. So that it was just really attainable, basically. I started off with this small setup and a small minimum viable product and a really small scope of just this action of digging up some dirt, putting it into a bucket, putting it into a pan, brushing it, and then getting a nice gold nugget, selling that gold nugget, buying some more machinery. And the game kind of just evolved from that, really. There was never any design document in those early days of when I was working on it. It was just literally every day, kind of just would wake up, start recording some videos, and literally just make just weird items for the game. And now there is some weird items in the game. Like we've just added in some dynamite objects, and there's a cactus as well. It's just random items. Every day I kind of just add in something new, and I really enjoy it. It's a really nice way of working. Yeah, it's because that scope just kind of grows out, and it's just really interesting how the development of Hydroneer, especially because it kind of came with originally just myself working on it. There was no one else to kind of talk to and be like, hey, do you think we should add fishing into the game? I kind of just woke up one day and was like, Minecraft's got fishing and I like fishing, so I'm going to add fishing. And I really enjoy working on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really love the idea of just kind of turning a passion project, just something to kind of do in your free time, experiment with stuff, and watch it turn into the full game that is now Hydroneer, that all these different players love to play and enjoy messing around in. I can't even imagine how that feels watching it turn into what it has.
Yeah, there was definitely like a turning moment. I think maybe just a couple months before I was going to release, I kind of sent a few YouTube keys out and not thinking that anyone would play it. And then, a couple of people played it, and it sort of kind of blew up. And I was like, why does anyone kind of like this silly little game where everything, the physics is a little bit funky, and the UX isn't exactly like polished. It just kind of seemed to catch on, and the launch back in 2020 was a really good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a great game also. I also play it. Have been thoroughly enjoying it myself. So I am also very excited for your 2.0 update that is dropping this Sunday. Is there any information on that in particular you'd like to give us?
Yeah. So 2.0 has been a big one. It's been a difficult one. Some of the plans have changed. It was originally meant to come out last summer. And originally the idea was, let's rebuild the entire game from scratch, right? Throw out every single bit of code, get all the art assets and add new art assets in instead of using what we have here. And it went well until it kind of didn't. I think I learned a lot, especially from this is essentially my first job in game development, right? So I'm always learning everything every single day. And we basically kind of had to restart all the work on it. We were trying to go for this really cool multiplayer approach to the game, and with a few physics issues and issues in the studio, we basically had to restart again. So after basically a year and a half of work on the game, 6 months ago, I completely wiped the slate clean and restarted all the work by myself, with the help of a few people at the studio. And I basically remade all of the code in 6 months, and then we added on more code. And now there's a couple of other programmers who have helped me out, mainly Snaps and Joe, and we've also got some artists as well on the team, like Itchy Beard, and so we've been working really hard on this update. And I wasn't sure where I was going with that one, but it's basically just a complete rebuild of the game, and we're really excited about it. There's a brand new vehicle system. There is tons and tons of new items. We've redesigned it because as I was building it up, day by day, adding in these new things and not really following any sort of design document, there was a lot of issues that kind of came about with that. So having to remake everything from scratch. It kind of gave us like a really nice opportunity to redesign some of those like bad kind of design decisions that I kind of made along the way. And also with that, we've also got split screen multiplayer using Steam Remote Play. I kind of figured out the only way to really bring in multiplayer into the game was unfortunately to have split screen. It's the way that you kind of just share you split screen in half and you share that across a network instead of sharing across everything that's going on in the game. So there's a lot less physics interactions. There's no physics interactions that need to be passed over a network. It's just a screen. Obviously there's a downside with this, and it's a split screen, and you kind of lose half your monitor. But I think it's a nice compromise between unfortunately not being able to make multiplayer the way we intended. But I think myself and everyone else is really, really proud about what's this new update. We've got some amazing new character models. We've got some amazing new building items you can use, and a new cool crafting mechanic as well in the game.
That all sounds so incredibly exciting. And honestly, the first note that I've taken from this is that you need some sleep. Sounds like it's been very busy.
Yeah, this week's been a little bit stressful, to say the least.
Not just this week, but I mean, rebuilding the game basically twice, and especially the second time in a 6-month time span. That sounds like a very intense amount of work in a pretty short period of time there. So
it's not all just me, though. There is some fantastic people that I've been working with as well.
Absolutely, yeah. But still, even with a team, that's a very impressive amount of work that all of you have done in, a relatively short period of time. So I think after the Sunday, maybe you guys should have a week-long vacation of just sleeping for a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, that really just goes to show like how easy Blueprint is to use. As I mentioned earlier, like looking at written code, I think, so I did a degree in game development, and I pretty much only really touched upon Blueprint in my degree, and it's just so easy to use. It just is one of the credits of like, I don't think I would have ever been able to make a game if there wasn't something as simple and as easy to pick up and as easy to learn as well. Like I would say, I learned a lot in my degree, but I learned far more just looking at YouTube tutorials, people online, just making all these tutorials about how to make a game in Unreal Engine. It really is like attainable to anyone, especially, from a solo position as well. I was originally solo up until release. And there's just tons out there, and not only videos, but also assets. There's a little secret that I'll let you in on. And that is a lot, and maybe like 90% of the models, especially the environmental models in the game, they're all assets that I bought and then retextured. So they're all from Cinti Studios. I know a lot of people, that are into game development will have heard of Cinti Studios, the low poly, cool looking models. And they're absolutely fantastic, and there's hundreds of them. But I wanted my game to look a little bit different, so I just retextured all of them, basically. And that's also another thing. It just makes game development even quicker when you've got half the work there done for you. I'm an awful modeler, so when it comes to anything like that, it just figured out kind of. I was like, right, I'll compromise. I won't learn modeling, or I won't learn programming, but I'll learn Blueprint, and I'll learn how to use Substance Painter. And yeah.
I love that. There's a compromise on everything.
yeah, exactly. It's this mentality, and it's got plenty of different names, but I like to call it cowboy coding. Everything I do is just to try and get it out of the door. And now, obviously, we're a bit more strict upon that, and kind of try and put out a lot more of a polished product, especially with a bigger team that we're able to do that now. But yeah, I like the mentality of kind of just getting the game done and out there, and not necessarily worrying about, is this the most optimized code? Is this the best way of doing it? Or just like, hey, what's the quickest way of getting content to players that is relatively bug-free?
Relatively. Little asterisk there.
Relatively is that kind of key word. But no, we've done a pretty fantastic job, and we've on this update with bug testing, because we've had this closed beta for a while, and we've also got some really, really good kind of in-house volunteer testers who have been working really, really hard over the last few months just to make sure there's no bugs. And I'm pretty sure that it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm excited about it for sure. Especially, it sounds like just the amount of work being put into it. It's going to be incredible. And I know you were saying that the multiplayer didn't end up being what you're wanting it to be, but I have to say, I personally, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I actually really enjoy split screen. It's very nostalgic for me personally. So something about that's going to bring back kind of the old school, like two buddies sitting on a couch playing on the same TV sort of feel. And I actually really enjoy that. So I think that'll give it a really nice playable feel to it. It's kind of nostalgic, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I understand why people could be upset about split screen multiplayer not being the proper multiplayer, but you know, it's a compromise, unfortunately. But I've recently been playing Lego Star Wars, you know, on the PlayStation 5, and I just love it. It's so good, especially with split screen, and you're just playing with a friend, and you're just sitting there chatting. And if someone's like, "Hey, look at this thing," you just look over to the other side of the screen, and there's, as you said, the nostalgic magic of it. It's not the worst thing in the world. And you know, I want players to go into it with an open mind and being like, "Hey, look, I'll try this out and see how it goes, and then form an opinion on that." I think that's only fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for it. But with that, I should get away from my own laundry list of personal questions. And I know you had some stuff that you wanted to walk us through in Editor, right?
Sure. Yeah. So in Editor, I can show you guys right now. Switch it up. Awesome. So this is the wide world of Hydroneer. So what we've got now in the game, because we have multiplayer, you can see here, we've got a really cool character creator. And this is made by one of the new guys at Fable Hangover called Joe Riggins. I didn't make that up. I know, obviously, Joe Riggins being the character rigger is, you know, a bit of a weird one, especially there's another guy we work with, Dan Bell, who makes the sound effects. And again, I'm not making this up. This is genuinely their names. And also Daniel Bright, who works on UI. You know, it sounds like I'm making up all these names, but genuinely, it's just a really strange way that everyone that works on Hydroneer kind of has a surname that links into their job. But yeah, this is the cool new character creator. We've even got some like strange kind of skin colors. And we're going to be fleshing this out as the game goes along, especially considering in the 2.1 update, we plan on adding in NPC interactability. So we want to really flesh this out with a lot more things, including, you know, female bodies, as well as lots of new hairstyles and outfits and stuff like that. But we're really happy with how this has come out so far. I just love the customization in this, especially, you know, having the ability to have some funky underwear. Yeah, this is... So 2.0 also comes with a brand new save system. Unfortunately, because we've completely thrown out a load of items and added in plenty of new ones, we've actually had to remake the entire save system. And also, at that time, we wanted to port it to a new one. So now this is using, instead of Unreal Engine's save system, we're actually on EMS. The developers watching this would probably know what that is. The same thing with our settings menu as well. We've now gone on to auto settings instead of using a custom one that I made that really sucked. Yeah, we've got this awesome new one that you can also now change between creative mode on and off, as well as having nice Steam cloud saves as well. And the one thing is that people really like about this game, the first thing they really like is how that kind of camera pans in. They go, oh, this game is actually already in the game, and it wasn't just a menu screen. I really like that. I was watching someone stream today, actually, who mentioned that. So yeah, 2.0 also has this new kind of little market thing over here, but also a really cool new area. Now, if anyone has watched any of the videos or maybe have played Hydroneer before, you might have noticed the truck flying out of control. I mean, anyone who's played Hydroneer will have probably experienced that. The vehicle code that I made originally was was not so good. So Snaps has built us, and if anyone is familiar with Unreal Engine Slackers, the Discord group as well, you might know Snaps. She's on there quite a lot. And she's just made this awesome new vehicle system, which, I mean, you can see there I just bumped into a rock, and usually that would make you spin out of control on the old vehicle system. So I'm happy to announce we've got a brand new vehicle system in, which works a lot nicer. And one of these new areas that I'm just getting to over here, I don't think you guys can also hear the sound effects in new vehicles as well, but we've gone in and we've completely replaced all of the sound effects in the game. But anyway, here is our brand new area. It's called Ice Helm, and it is a big underground mine. The first thing you'll notice is there's a little elevator here, which I've just, oh no, I've just got it. And we're just gonna jump off there and skip that. And this is one of the new crafting progression kind of gameplay mechanics, where before the game it kind of didn't really have too much progression. There was this boat in the game where you could essentially create these pretty much useless items to eventually create the most useless of all items. It was a blunderbuss which didn't fire. And players weren't too happy with that. So we've gone in and created this brand new mechanic in the game, and it's called Masterwork Crafting. And the way it works is you go over to this cool little hammer over here. And if I set this up properly, I'd actually have the resources to show you guys what this is like. But in my latest devlog, I actually go into it. So if you do want to check that out, then head over to the YouTube channel for that. So you place like a little pedestal here. You put in all the resources here, and you press the hammer, and then it swings down. I think actually the trailer actually showed that off. As well as that, we've also got this new dig site here. If I just jump down here. This dig site is our first ever dig site that goes horizontal. So in the game, the deeper you dig, the better the resources. And in this one, the more horizontal you dig, the better the resources. So yeah, this is just one of the two new claims in the game. And the other one is actually over here. Oh, I've lost control of my mouse. Oh, there we go. This one's called Snow Ruin Falls, and it's the first snowy diggable dig site in the game. So yeah, those are two of the new areas in the game, and there's a few other ones. And yeah, that is some new features coming into the game. What else do I have to show? There's a new store as well, actually. There's a couple new stores. So first off, what we've done is 2.0 is a foundational update, and that means that we created it to be able to add more content in the game. And one of these elements of new content we want to add is new building pieces. So what we've got here is the stone building set. And all of the building sets have exactly the same items. So you've got walls, you've got pillars, you've got small floors, you've got large floors, you've got different roofing tiles. And every single build set has got all of these elements in them in the exact same sizes. So you can mix them up really well. So if you wanted to make like a little blacksmith room, maybe you would have like a cool stone floor, and then above that you would have a cottage building, for example. So this one is the stone build set, and if I move over here, this is the cottage build set with some nice little cottage flooring and cottage walls and kind of thatch roofing. And then all the way over here, we've got some wooden kind of building pieces. And they're just something that we want to expand on in the future with more updates that come in. We want to have plenty of more different build sets that players can have. And that's kind of about it, really. Is 2.0 is a foundational update, as well as all the new cool things that we're going to be adding. It's definitely a solid foundation that we can build upon in the future. Right now, we've kind of announced two new updates that are coming out. And that's 2.1, which is going to be like a farming update, which is going to include a lot more NPC interactability, as well as cool new crafting mechanics, and obviously farming. And the next one is going to be the 2.2 tier 3 update. Now in the game, we wanted to add in progression. So now you have tier 2 and tier 1 machinery and different pipes and stuff. With this new 2.2 update, 2.2 update, there's going to be tier 3 machinery, new kind of resources to discover. There's going to be new prospecting tools, new vehicles with that as well. Unfortunately, with this new update, we did have to say goodbye to the excavator vehicle, which will be kind of making somewhat of a comeback in the future. We've kind of just kept with our original trucks, and vehicles is definitely something we want to kind of dip our toes into heavily in the future, as well as kind of new areas as well. One of the really cool big new changes in the update is now how we've kind of combined logic and power. Before, we had this issue where players would kind of find it quite difficult to understand how logic and power kind of works. So we kind of combined everything into one. And logic is really interesting. It works kind of the way pipes work. You have these logic cables over here that you kind of piece together. And you can make some really, really interesting mining machines. In our trailer, there's actually probably one of the coolest ones I've seen. It's someone's using magnets to create. I say someone because it was someone on the dev team, and I can't remember who actually made that build. But they're using magnets to kind of move resources around their bases and using timers and stuff. It really, really is cool, the kind of things you can come out with this. There's one of our users called Jordan Swavel. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he is always coming up with like the most crazy logic things, like all these like LED lights and different types of like random logic machinery. And of course, everyone's favorite is still sticking in the game, the nuclear bombs. I mean, who doesn't like a good nuclear bomb in a video game? That's a few 2.0 features that I can kind of talk about right now. If you guys want to see all of them, I've got a devlog coming out as the update comes out. So you can either watch that, or you can play the game, or you can do both. That's all I got for now.
That's awesome. I have to say, I think that the vehicle driving it around looked very smooth. That looked great.
Honestly, Snap's done a great job with it. Honestly, I mean, if you've seen her on Unreal Engine Slackers, you'll know she's got a good brain there, and unlike my big chimp brain. But yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Likewise as well, the new mining area that you talked about, well, the mine itself, that reveal when you drop down and see that big open room with the giant anvil, that was glorious. What a great setup for the level there.
Yeah, it is really cool. In fact, that we did actually have, I learned something new the other day. We had some issues with baked lighting, and we were trying to figure out how do we make this baked lighting look really nice. We kind of got this pinkish hue that was coming off of I think it was the sky sphere, the skylight. And in the end, all it took was just a bit of post-processing. It kind of looked really, really bad one day. I went in there and just spent an entire day working on this new post-process effect. And I think the heat coming from the bottom of this really interesting area, I'm really, really happy with how that came out. It does really look cool.
Yeah, it's a great addition for sure. It feels like it belongs in the game too. I know sometimes there is a difficulty when adding in new areas or new levels. It can kind of feel like it almost doesn't take place in the same world. It's not quite matching in with the style, especially with stylized games. I find that can be kind of difficult, but everything you showed really feels very cohesive and like it belongs into the world that you've built. So kudos for that, seriously.
Well, so all of the items, as I mentioned before, a good amount of them use the Cinti assets, and we kind of had to go in and obviously make our own assets on top of these. So I think that's just a credit to our modeler Itchybeard, who's just done such a great job of getting that style right, because it's quite hard coming up with your own style, but I think it's even harder trying to kind of copy another style that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Matching an existing style is a huge credit to them as an artist for sure. So incredible work to the whole team all around. With that, we have a couple of questions from chat, if you don't mind popping in with some of
Let's do
those
it.
real quick. So a couple of them are a little overview-ish, but I still think they're really awesome questions. So the first one is just, what has been your favorite part of developing Hydroneer so far?
Oh,
Big question.
oh, that's such a hard one. It's a great question, though. I think it's the freedom of um, just kind of like making a game where anything can kind of go into it. You know, what's great about it is we can take a suggestion from the community and we can kind of just turn that into an idea of someone says, hey, I think a while ago there was this problem where people had so many of these uncut gems in the game. And we made this kind of funny video joking about it. And I got loads of streamers to kind of make little clips and stuff to put inside that video. And we called it the Hydroneer Gem Crisis, and shaped the video around the Cuban Missile Crisis, and kind of like made this whole joke about it because you couldn't automate cutting gems at all in the game, so everyone would just have all these uncut gems just piling up because too many of them would spawn, and there would just be so many of them everywhere. And we got loads of messages from people being like, hey, like this is a problem in my game. It's lagging so much. I'm having to destroy all these gems because I just can't do anything with them. So then we created the logic compressor item kind of off of the bat of that suggestion. And I think it's really fun. The
Oh
way
no.
that mods have made.
Here,
Oh,
1 second there. We had a slight hiccup. There we
we
go.
good?
All right, if you don't mind backing up
Okay.
just a couple words there.
Sorry. So I just love how any item, that a player, someone could dream up of, that you can just put it in the game. And I've seen some pretty wacky mods already. Some people are building mods for the new update. I saw the other day someone was making this mod where it's basically like a shooting range for the game. And yeah, it's just cool how like endlessly sandbox Hydroneer can kind of, the potential of it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been so much fun watching just the community around your game grow and some of the stuff that they've done. Obviously, there's some pretty well-known videos around it. There was also a question I saw where someone was asking if "Let's Play It Out" is still banned or wanted in Badge 4.
Yeah, so let's game it out. He's made some pretty popular videos about Hydroneer, and yeah, if anyone does see him, there is a bounty on his head if we can capture him. I think it's a billion Hydro coins or something like that. There's a little poster in the town. Yeah, no, his videos are fantastic. Yeah, and there is a great community of streamers that make content for Hydroneer. Shout out to Blitz, Dre, Raptor, Hybrid Steel makes loads of good tutorials. And no, it's really good to see that all these content creators are making some really awesome content for the game. It makes my job easier.
Less promo on your
And
end,
harder.
right?
Harder in some ways when Let's Game It Out, makes a bug, it finds a bug and then abuses it, and then I've got to go in there and fix it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's great when somebody enjoys the game enough to purposely break it. So, you're doing something right.
Yeah, literally.
With that in mind, what do you wish you could go about differently, kind of looking back on the whole journey so far?
That's a really good question. I think, this whole thing, I'm not too hard on myself about, kicking myself for making some mistakes in the past, especially, with the development, because it was my first game that I've ever made. So I think number one would probably be, I didn't release the game as like early access on Steam. I kind of just released it. And I don't really know why. I kind of, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. So I think I I'd say like if there was like the out of early access launch, 2.0 would kind of be it. So I think it was because I was kind of working on it before, and I was, kind of giving people access to the game via like Patreon before. So yeah, I think maybe launching in Steam early access could have been a bit better. I think a few people felt like the game feels like an early access game, and they would look on Steam and they would go, actually, this is an early access. So probably be that. The next one would probably be announcing multiplayer before we kind of figured out the multiplayer part. My bad. What can I say? We did a lot of tests, and it did look like it was viable, but unfortunately, much too late down the line, we figured out it wasn't. So yeah, that was a bit of a whoopsie. And other than that, not too many. I think 2.0 kind of really hits the nail on the head of fixing things that were bad design choices in the past. So yeah, I think instead of kind of like worrying about the past too much, we can kind of look forward to the future of 2.0 and this like awesome foundation of an update that it's going to bring to many more updates, really. One thing is that I don't really have a schedule of when these updates are coming out, but also I don't really have a schedule of how long I'm going to be working on Hydroneer for. As long as people want content for the game, and as long as there's a point in making content for the game, I mean, why not? So yeah, like I can see myself working on this game for a very long time because I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think the people that work on the game right now really love working on it. So yeah, I don't see why we're going to be stopping or slowing down anytime soon.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine it just continuing to grow from here, and this 2.0 update seems like a great step in that direction, at least from what we got a little sneak peek of so far.
Yeah. I think as well the price point of Hydroneer, especially, actually, I should probably mention, if anyone does want, after watching this stream or whatever, if anyone is thinking about buying Hydroneer, hold off for a second. We're going to be doing a sale on Sunday for 30% off. I know it's only $10 US right now, but there you go. You heard it here. We're doing a sale when the update comes out for 30% off. So if you're thinking about buying it, just put it on the wish list and just give it a couple of days, right? I mean, you want to play the 2.0 update anyway. So, but yeah, that I think I was kind of inspired by games like Terraria, being at or Minecraft being at such like a low price point. It's attainable to a lot of people. It then gets a lot of people in to play the game, and why not? Why not? We're a small studio. We don't really need to have a big price tag on our name, and I think the $10 price point is more than fair. So, but yeah, if you want to get it even cheaper, then just wait a couple of days. 2.0 is coming out in, I think, 3 or 4 days from now. I'm not sure. Time is kind of a blur right now with how busy we've been this week on the 2.0 update.
Well, there you go. Yeah, the inside scoop right there. We'll wait for a sale. You can get the game for the price of a large coffee. So
literally, and who needs coffee when you've got tea?
That's a controversial thing you just said there.
Yeah, maybe just showing your British side here, but yeah.
So yeah, perfect. Good for me to know as well. So now I can just Steam gift it to all of my friends, and we'll just play together over the whole next week. So good for me to know.
Actually, that's one really good point about Steam Remote Play is your friend doesn't even need to have a copy of the game. With Steam Remote Play, only one person needs to own it. So you can literally invite them off of Steam, and as long as your internets are fairly okay, mine's pretty terrible, and the game runs pretty all right on my bad internet. That's the kind of the beauty of one of the perks of this split screen approach is only one person needs to buy it. That's great. And then you can maybe if you really enjoy playing with a friend, and maybe they'll buy it as well. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to keep an eye out for. Kind of in line with what you were saying about how you do intend to keep working on Hydroneer as long as people are interested in it. Are there any other plans for the studio? What's next for the studio? Do you think you're going to branch out to other games as well, or are you going to focus in mostly on what you have right now?
That's a great question. I sometimes I can't really sit still sometimes with some games. So I have over the last maybe year or so, I've been working on kind of like weekend projects of different games. We've right now we've got something that's kind of that I've been working on just kind of as like a weekend project, a little hobby project. Um, and we'll just have to see if that becomes something. I'm sure a few people that are familiar with the studio will know that I previously had another game that I was working on for a while, which we kind of had to put on the back burner because of this different approach with 2.0, where I kind of had to focus all my effort onto it. So I would love to say, yeah, we're working on this really exciting thing, and it's definitely going to be a thing, but I don't even know if it's going to be a thing. I've got a really cool game prototype that I'm working on, but you know what? Next week I could probably go, I don't want to do this anymore, and throw it out. So I think what's nice right now is just focusing all our effort onto Hydroneer, and I think I personally don't want the studio to grow to any bigger of a size than it is now. I quite like us being like a small, close knit team. I think the idea of what Hydroneer is can sometimes get lost when you have a bigger team, like with any kind of game. I think more people will kind of diversify the idea of what the original concept of your game is. So I like to keep things small. I like to keep things small and tight, and everyone kind of is on the same track about what the kind of game we want to be making is. I think just one game for now. We're just gonna think about Hydroneer and stay on that track.
Yeah, totally understandable. Let's keep it bearable,
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah. Well, with all that in mind, I have a couple questions that are a bit more engine focused now, if that's all right with you.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
So another one that for now is just kind of a general overview sort of question is because you spoke a little bit about how while you were getting your education, you did learn about Unreal Engine, but how you
Mhm.
learned the majority of your stuff from YouTube channels or from videos or online resources. So would you have any recommendations for anybody who maybe doesn't have access to getting an education necessarily, but still wants to get a good start in Unreal Engine, and any advice you would have for them?
Yeah. So, um, to kind of preface this, so when I made Hydroneer, I kind of just left university, working in a bar, kind of part time, and just working on the game as hard as possible, 14 hours a day of just kind of putting in as much work as possible. Probably an unhealthy amount, but whatever. And one of the big main things was YouTube is such an accessible tool. What I would do is think of something. So let's say kind of placing an item down and trying to figure out how that kind of works. Maybe you would ask on Unreal Slackers, hey, how would I go about doing this? And someone would give you like a pretty brief explanation of like, yeah, you use this node and this node and this node in Blueprint. But the best part about that is if you go onto YouTube and you type in Unreal Engine 4, you know, just a name of a node, there will be a Matthew Wadstein video out there. And if you guys don't know who Matthew Wadstein is, and I hope I'm saying that right, he's got videos on absolutely every single Unreal Engine node there is in Blueprint. So if you're, I think that's and he basically explains how it works, what every kind of pin on that node is, and it's just such an awesome way of learning because you get in your head about like, right, I need to do maybe a line trace for this, and then I need to maybe change the transformation of this item or whatever, and then maybe there's a bit of math involved there that you're not really sure of. Well, there'll be a video for that. And that was kind of like a great way of how I learned everything that I kind of know now about Unreal Engine, was just purely watching loads and loads of these videos and learning about all of these different Blueprint nodes. And it's just so attainable, really. All it takes is a bit of confidence in yourself. Like at the start, I kind of super confident, and it only took me one of my lecturers to kind of show us how easy it is to actually use Unreal. And yeah, it just kind of it starts out, especially with the way Hydroneer is made. I've kind of mentioned how you kind of just add in one item to solve a problem, and then add in another item to solve another problem, like conveyor belts, for instance. We added in a conveyor belt that's like a shredder that kind of shreds up dirt particles going through it. With that is the way I designed Hydroneer is I was constantly trying to figure out how do I program this new item in the game. And it's really nice because you're just using the building blocks of the previous item. So for instance, the first ever building item in the game, where you click to start placing it down, and then you place it down into the world, you already have that code already there for you, and you already understand it. So then the new item that you're going to be making, you just have to add in a little bit more functionality to it. Maybe it's a bed that skips time, or maybe it's a furnace that heats up other items. You kind of build upon these building blocks of development, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but yeah. It basically the conclusion is that Unreal Engine Blueprint is very attainable and very easy to understand, as long as you're just confident with yourself, and you just put in some time into watching a lot of YouTube videos. Because not that I regret getting my degree at all, but certainly YouTube was a lot more helpful in that regard of learning.
Maybe very specific things you need to know. It's a lot easier to look up a quick YouTube video on it than maybe go through X amount of time to try and find it.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
I completely understand. But yeah, also good call out with Matthew, because you're right. He has everything, absolutely everything you could ever need. So that's a great resource.
Yeah.
With that, I know you've dabbled a little bit in both blueprints and coding. Do you have any recommendations for what sorts of things you would recommend doing in Blueprint versus coding?
So realistically, we only really code C++ when something isn't really exposed to Blueprint. And it only really kind of comes to the end of development, where that stuff becomes, or the end of whatever you're doing, of your project. It really only comes to the end portion of that when you start to really need C++. So we've actually been working with NVIDIA on this latest update, putting in DLSS, and they've been really, really helpful. But sometimes we've had to kind of expose some kind of like basically just creating blueprint nodes. And that's like the good thing about Unreal, is you can just make a blueprint node and then just put it back into your event graph. So sometimes we've kind of had to go back and use C++ for those kind of things. Things like Steam Remote Play and cloud saving, things like that. Fortunately, because of my awful C++ skills, Joe on the team has been taking care of a lot of these things. He's just a wizard compared to me. So we mainly just work in Blueprint. It does exactly what we need it to do. If I was to say if there's anything that kind of we try and steer away from in Blueprint, it's loops. In my experience, loops don't really aren't as efficient as they could be in C++. But for the most part, people don't really give Blueprint enough credit. It's one thing to kind of say, all games should be made in, all Unreal games should be made in C++, but the people saying those kind of things are the people who don't really release games. So, rapid prototyping in Unreal Engine using Blueprint is just, I love it. And I don't think I could have made a game without these easy to understand big Blueprint blocks and plugging noodles into different blocks. It's just so simple. Works with my tiny brain.
I agree. I kind of like to describe my own brain as a picture book, where I need fewer words and more pictures, and so Blueprints works perfectly for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can feel like a coder, kind of, with just pretty
Yeah,
pictures, and I'm down for
yeah.
that.
Sometimes it just makes you feel like a wizard when you're like, I can just do anything in this. And then something that requires C++ comes up and you go, oh, actually, no, sorry, can someone else help me with this? Or, whatever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. On the topic of blueprints, is there any
Mhm.
specific blueprint that you've created, maybe if you're willing to show us, that you're particularly proud of?
I think overall, the thing that I'm probably most proud about is probably just generally how simple everything is set up in the game. Uh, if I'm going to go into this a little bit more technical, hopefully we don't have too many just like Hydroneer players here who are just in it for finding out about Hydroneer stuff. So technically speaking, all of the items kind of just follow. They're just a child of the tool class, and there's just some really simple code in there. For instance, with a shovel, um, it a lot of this code is super simple. So we have this event right here saying when we click with our mouse while carrying the item, because we don't want to confuse that with when you're looking at the item and you click it. If that trace has hit something and we're inside a voxel world and we're not in an animation, then and we don't have dirt already on us, then kind of dig some dirt up and put it on the shovel, and if not, then throw that dirt somewhere else. One thing actually that just reminded me, something that we can definitely go into is the animation graph. And this is kind of going back to what I mentioned before of being a cowboy coder. So I'm not an animator, right? I'm not a modeler or an animator. I can't do any of that. But what I can do is cowboy my way out of a problem. So we've got this little actor component over here called the animator. And surprise, surprise, it's for animations. Now, if I go over to where that's located, so what I wanted to do was basically make an animation in the game. Let me just quickly show you guys that animation so we're all clear here on what's going on. Let's join this one over here. So we can grab our shovel, and if you look here, in our first-person animations, not to get confused with our nice third-person animations, if I click with the ground, the shovel kind of digs in and kind of flicks forward a little bit. So there's a rotation there and so you've got a rotation and also a translation, so moving the location of it. And we've got two animations here. We've got the empty and the dig. Now, this isn't using any animation. This isn't using any kind of animation at all, a traditional animation, should I say. This is just changing the local position and rotation of that item using that animator component. And this is actually something that I'm really proud of because it is just so cowboy. Let me go ahead and find out where that's actually happening. Right here. There is this node here, play animation. This is actually for if you can't mine something, but it uses pretty much the same thing. It uses this curve called C move shovel dig, and then we've got C rot shovel dig. And it passes through one of these many lovely curves we have here. This is essentially what all the animations run on. And it runs from 0 to 1. You can see here, this is the movement. So it starts off at 0 position, and then it finishes off at 0 position on the timeline. So what it does is it basically is just saying we're moving the Z height of that shovel. So you're holding it and you're moving it downwards and you're digging, and then it kind of like comes back up on this nice little curve here. And all the animations run off of this. So if I go back to the rotation for shovel dig, you can see it right here. We're just rotating that X value on the animation graph. We're just going again from 0 to 1 and moving kind of down to give this nice digging rotation on the shovel. So yeah, that's something I'm really, really proud of. And what that actually looks like when we look at the animator is we play this animation. which is essentially just a timer. And you can see here, I'm even doing some pretty disgusting stuff with this going into there. I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably have a handle reference there. But with this event, it is passed in an animation time, which sets the animation maximum time. And then over this timer, it figures out if we've finished that animation yet. And if we haven't, then we get the movement curve and the rotation curves, and we set the rotation and the movement of that inside of this event timer right here. Once we finish that event timer, then we clear the event timer. We clear the timer, and then we just pass a little event here called override animation finished, which can be used for things like, for instance, if we are digging with our pickaxe and we're swinging our pickaxe, we don't want the player to be able to drop that pickaxe because some funny kind of stuff happens with setting the relative location because it's not attached to the character anymore. It's kind of falling out of the sky. So we basically set it so if you're in an animation, you can't drop that item. So that's basically how the animator works. Something that I'm pretty proud of just because of how kind of hacky it is. But it just works perfectly. It takes a little bit of setup. You've got to kind of understand how these curves work to make your own animation. But if anyone doesn't have the funds for an animator and you've kind of got like a first person only game with no hands, I recommend this approach. Feel free to screenshot that right there. It's hacky and horrible, but I love it. It's pretty cool. But that kind of goes to show of like one of those things of like when you're creating a game as a solo developer and I don't know, you're maybe working in a bar like I was doing, you don't have a lot of money to spend on games and hiring your friends to help you out with things. Taking a shortcut like this is a great way to kind of make sure you can keep your game scope relatively small and actually make it to release, because that's kind of one of the big things is really you just want to try and make it to release as quickly as possible without spending as much money as possible.
I love that. That's so innovative. I really love being able to watch animations be done through blueprints because I can't animate anything. So seeing ways to get it done is amazing.
It's about kind of trying to find that like shortest route where instead of like, getting Maya or Blender or whatever and trying to figure out how animations work and then learning all of this stuff about animations, it's just like, look, I already know how curves work and I already know how setting the local rotation of an item works. Just put those two together, make an animation system. Sometimes it's not the best way of doing it, but it's just a way that can get you towards releasing your game. And I think that is the most important thing. I think people fall short and think optimization is the most important thing when it's not. It's releasing the game is the most important thing. As long as you're proud of what you're releasing, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Which honestly is actually a super great tip, I think, to give out to developers, is just to keep the end goal in mind of actually releasing what it is you're working on. It's very easy to get caught up.
Yeah, definitely. We, even with this 2.0 update, even though we've tried to keep it like as concise and small as possible, we're kind of like, oh, wouldn't it be really cool to add this in? Wouldn't it be really cool to add this in? And we're just taking all of those ideas and we're just kind of combining everything into like these nice handy updates. Like the farming update was like, we could kind of get in some plant growing stuff and, making crops and stuff. And we're like, no, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just chuck it into 2.1. And same thing with vehicles. We were like, should we put the excavator back in? Maybe we'll wait till 2.1 and figure out a bit more changes in balance then. So yeah.
Scope. It is, I'm going to say it every single stream, I swear. Anybody who's watched multiples of these will know I say it every time. But scope is the killer for sure. That is the hard part always.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key to what I did well, I think something I could share with that is Hydroneer was playable after a month of development. It wasn't anything good. It wasn't like great at all, but it kind of gave me an idea of scope very early on. I basically made a minimum viable prototype that I released on Patreon, which was I think $2 at that time, which is just way too much for how crap that thing was. But it's important to kind of get an idea and be like, look, this is going to be a playable game in X amount of time. Creating that, figuring out what needs to come next, and then kind of almost like leave the design document out until you've made that minimal viable product, and then kind of going, actually, you know what, now we can design these things into here and delete all of this code and make this new stuff. Maybe that's not the best advice, take it or leave it. But yeah, I think creating that minimum viable product, that MVP, as quickly as possible, definitely helped me out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Having that starting point, that foundation to build off of is always a good place to go.
Yeah, literally.
There is a question here kind of in regards to bug fixing. And if you had to guess, even maybe just with a percentage, how much time do you think is spent actually building and designing versus bug fixing?
That's a really good question. So I would say 80%. It really just depends what you're doing. 80% kind of making. Okay, let's just take the last, since we've been working on 2.0 in the last like 6 months or so. On this round of 2.0, obviously the work we threw out doesn't count. I would say 80% working on stuff and 20% fixing bugs. But that's not just everyone fixing bugs. That's also me fixing some bugs, Joe fixing some bugs, Itchy fixing some bugs. I'd say we're pretty good with it now. But what's really, really, really been useful about this whole kind of rebuild the game from the ground up is now we've made such a better foundation of the game. We know, I know from experience what kind of bugs come up. Usually they're like collision profile mismatching and stuff like that, and one collision profile doesn't like another collision profile. So I know what kind of stuff comes up in a game like this, and I think that's been really, really, really useful in kind of creating a foundation that I feel like working on it in the future, we're going to have a lot less issues because of these like nice foundations that we've kind of created now that are a lot more solid. And now when we make new items in the game, hopefully there won't be too many bugs that pop up because of the previous stuff. Whereas before, with the version that's kind of live in the game right now, in the 1.7 version, which is our retail live version now, a lot of those bugs are so deep rooted that the only way to get rid of them was to literally just throw away all that code. There was a lot of really annoying issues there that when we get a negative review, it will be because of that issue. Most of the time, a lot of people say that one of the most annoying things in the game is trucks flipping out of control. Because of my poor integration in vehicles. But I will mention one of the weird things is I made this devlog the other day, a few months ago actually, not the other day, but everyone was kind of saying, I was basically showing off the new vehicle system, and everyone was kind of saying, what about trucks flying out of control? I still want my truck to flip out of control. And there was just this really small minority of players who were really upset about trucks not being able to flip out of control. So I'm not going to say what it is, but we've added an Easter egg in the game now where you can make your truck flip out of control. And I know a few people have seen it already, but I think a lot of people haven't kind of discovered it from, the content creators we've been showing and the people in our closed beta. Nobody really found it. But yeah, for those kind of players, that small minority of people who love the trucks flipping out of control, we've got something there for you, and you just got to go and find it. Yeah, there is a little Easter egg.
Perfect. Well, now I know what I need to go search for is the spot that I can flip my truck out of control.
It might be a spot. It might be something else. I'm not going to mention it, but yeah.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
I do have a couple questions here from someone named Itchy Beard in the chat.
Oh God, not that guy.
Okay. The first one
Yes.
What is your favorite item in the 2.0 upgrade?
That's a really good one. I'd have to say, and it's a late edition. It's the hand panning machine, or the hand sorting machine, so I say. I was kind of playing the 2.0 update the other day, and I found it really, really slow because what you would do is you would wash all the resources in your pan. You would add more dirt in, wash them in. There's kind of this way where you don't even have to empty the resources out that you've kind of just washed out. You can just kind of add more dirt in. But then you end up with this pan of just every single resource in the game. You've got all these uncut gems. You've got all these, all this Cloutium, all of this gold ore, all of this iron ore. You're like, what? Like now I got to hand sort all of this stuff. So frustrated by my own game, I was like, no, I'm making an item to fix this really, really annoying poor design issue right here. And now it's this perfect item where you put some pans kind of around it. You put little, like what you want to split out on the pedestal. So maybe I want gold ore. You pour the bucket in there, and then all the gold ore will come out one side, and all the other resources will come out the other side. And it is by far just such a relief of pain, because we were kind of like seeing how some players would say like the early game is a bit of a grind, and one of the biggest grinding elements was literally just like sitting there and kind of just picking out these little dirt, these little gold chunks and putting them in a separate bucket and smelting that down into a bar or whatever. So it was nice. It was nice in my frustration that I could kind of figure out a new item. And Itchy Beard, the person who asked this question, made a quite cool model to go with it as well.
That's awesome. I love the idea of playing your own game and getting mad enough at it that you have to change something in there.
Oh yeah. I've had a few things where, like for instance, a couple days before the game went on sale back in 2020, I was playing it on a live stream, and in the game, whenever you're creating, let's say, a dagger, you need a couple of iron bars. In fact, actually, you need one iron bar, and you put that into the crucible the furnace to heat it up. Right, you need like a hot bar to be able to use it on the anvil, because obviously, if you hit a cold metal bar, it probably wouldn't do anything. And this was a few days before release, and I was doing a live stream of it, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't craft this dagger. And I was sitting there like, why won't this work? Why won't this work? And I look over at chat, and everyone's just screaming at me, calling me an idiot. Completely fair, for not heating up the bar to put it on the anvil. And yeah, so in fact, there's even like a little GIF on the Discord that goes around of me figuring that one out. So yeah,
Perfect.
I think sometimes my own game can annoy me quite a bit.
Yeah. There's nothing quite like getting roasted by your own community.
Brilliant, love it. Especially, or maybe sometimes I'll jump in someone's stream, and they will, as I jump in, their truck is flying out of control on this current version of 1.7, and I'm just like, oh god damn it, this is not the best time for dev to hop in the truck.
Like, Max, what is this?
Yeah, literally, I'm like, I don't know, I gotta go, bye. Sorry. Yeah, what happens?
Pop in just to pop out real quick.
Yeah, literally. Start typing and just instantly stop.
Yeah, blame it on your bad internet.
Well, what we like to do here is we like to just blame Itchy. We like to blame Itchy Beard for a lot of things. Like kind of like a running joke in the Discord. We even got like a little emoji for it. If anything goes wrong in Hydroneer, blame Itchy. That's the motto.
There you go. Poor Itchy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Itchy, he did have one other question for you that I think
is
so important, and it needs to be taken with the utmost sincerity and seriousness that you can possibly muster. Okay.
Where are we going with this? Okay.
What is your favorite tea, and why is it Yorkshire tea?
So Yorkshire tea so there's a lot of teas in England, right? You got like PG Tips, you got Yorkshire tea, you got Tetley, but Yorkshire tea is just the finest of all teas. It just tastes really good. I can't start my morning without it. People who watch the devlogs will know every single devlog I got my mug in that one. And it's just because Yorkshire tea is just the best tea. Unless, of course, he's talking about my T-shirt, which we, that's something we're not going to go into in this stream right here, but might be available soon. Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
Nice segue there. Yeah, smooth.
yeah. We'll keep a little mystery in there, but if you're interested in it, maybe keep an eye out.
Maybe see what's going on. Yeah.
Maybe not. It's fine. Be a little coy. So, back into the engine, away from teas.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, enough of me peddling my ways. All right, let's get back into it.
What were your main challenges with lighting, if any?
That's a very good question. In fact, there was even a Reddit post that I made because I just couldn't get my head around it. Basically, so I'm not a lighting expert in any sort of way. So I'm sure there's people in this live stream who know far more than me. But what I experienced was static lighting when it was baked. So you've got for those of you who do not know, there's kind of like three main types of like kind of point lights, or any sort of lights in Unreal. You've got static, you've got stationary, and you've got dynamic, movable. And the cheapest of all these is static lights, and that basically means that the light isn't going to be changing. It's not going to be moving anywhere. Like if a lantern in the game where you carry around, you obviously can't make that static because it's constantly moving. So it kind of has to work out all of its lighting operations and stuff on the fly. Whereas static lighting, which is great for environmental lighting, things like our nice ice helm area, has to have all this static lighting because there's so many lights in there. In fact, if we want to swap over to the stream right here, I can show you guys. We're breaking the fourth wall here of video games. If I press G and I select some of this, you guys can see in the world of Ice Helm, there is quite a lot of lights. So all this wiry mess right here, you can see is all these lights and their attenuation radiuses, which is basically like how far the light out is going. And there's quite a lot of them. In fact, I haven't even highlighted all of them. So we can't have all of those lights being dynamic. So we've set them all to static. Now, the problem with setting them all to static is they start to look a little bit pink. I can kind of show you guys here in one of if I disable this post-processing volume, which is making our lighting not look good, you can see right here, all of the colors start to look a bit blown out and just not good. And I noticed when I was baking these static lights, they kind of started to look a little bit funky and I didn't really like them. So we tried a lot of approaches. We tried to kind of offset the lighting color and kind of play it into like the other extreme. Obviously with like a hue circle, we kind of were playing around with that, seeing if we can adjust it to make them look right. But instead we kind of just settled on, you know what, it would be far easier just to use a post-processing volume to make that lighting look extra crisp. So it went from this, we can see here, to this, which is a lot nicer. Those blues stick out a lot better. Down here it looks super hot and lava-y, which is a term. Yeah, so basically we use a post-processing volume. You can kind of see here, if you look really closely at kind of the clouds, you can just about see it. As I leave this post-process volume, which I'm just about in, you can see how the lighting just instantly changes. So as you come down this mine shaft, right here where we've got our nice elevator, you might be able to, if I go real slow, you'll see just as I kind of hit that yellow line, the lighting ever so changes and you can just about notice it. Sorry to ruin the game for anyone who's now, that's going to really annoy them now. You can't unsee it. But you enter into this post-processing volume, which changes the way that post-processing works in the game and then makes Ice Helm look nice and hot. And And yeah, how we do it. That was a really big problem in the game, just trying to figure all of that out. I think it took me a week of just like playing around with the lighting and playing around with the skylight in the game and the directional light, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And eventually, we kind of settled on this was the best approach. So, any of you guys who might be having issues with lighting and static lighting, especially, post processing is the way to go. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many neat little tips and tricks hidden in the post-processing volume. There's so much in there that even I don't fully understand because there's just so much available in there.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, it's a great resource though, for sure. So I'm glad you gave that little tip out because I can't tell
Yeah.
you the amount of time that I've spent in personal projects finicking with individual lights and nothing looking correctly and just unbelievable when a quick post process will fix everything.
Yeah, it does. It just does. And I think as well, like post processing isn't just useful for stuff like that. We've got a screenshot camera in the game. We've had it for a while now, and we've got like all these really nice filters that are, kind of like an Instagram filter, I guess, which is completely made by post processing. Even we've got like a deep fried mode as well, like a filter that makes everything look deep fried. You know how like you have like deep fried memes? Familiar with these? There's a deep fried filter mode in the screenshot camera because why not? Why not? And yeah, that's all just post processing. It's really fantastic the amount of stuff you can do with that.
Yeah, I really enjoy so far that the main answer for most things has been because why not?
That is, if there was a book about Hydroneer, the tagline would be because why not? Yeah, and that's kind of why I love working on it because it is just a little bit silly and it's a little bit just, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's not trying to be the most polished game ever. And it is what it is. And I think some players kind of appreciate that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you did mention that from the assets that you used a lot of the ones you specifically mentioned. But besides those, do you have any other really good marketplace assets that you have used or utilized in Hydroneer that you would recommend?
Oh, I can't believe I haven't even mentioned it. Voxel plugin. If you guys don't know how voxels work, it's kind of like landscape, but it's volumetric stuff. Faranaz, the guy who makes it, is probably just like this right now. Oh god, what is he talking about? Basically, if you want more complex, kind of like landscaping without using meshes and stuff. In fact, I can actually show you right now if we can flick over to my screen. This right here in Icehelm, all of this right here is not landscape. It's not mesh. This is all voxels. Obviously, it's the undiggable voxels that players can't dig, but it is literally just voxels. I wanted to have, without this, I'll actually hide it. Okay, you can't see it too well, but there was a roof there before, and it just looked a bit boring. It was just this kind of plain roof. So instead, we added in this really nice voxel-based kind of decoration, and it kind of looks like you've got bits of the wall kind of sticking through. And it's really nice for that. With landscaping, you're kind of limited to things can either kind of go up and down, but they can't really be. You can't do ceilings, for example. I think even here in Icehelm, the landscape here, it's actually got a hole cut out of it. You can kind of see this weird yellow kind of outline here, which is basically just an actual hole that is cut out of there, which we then have for our cave systems. And that kind of allows you to go through the terrain. But with this, it's a really powerful tool. It is genuinely, I don't think there's a bigger asset. There's a free version as well, but it is a fantastic asset. And they're actually working on their 2.0 version as well, which is even more impressive. And yeah, we use all of the diggable terrain is used with voxels. Obviously, there was kind of no way around it. I certainly wasn't going to make a voxel engine, that's for sure. And it just works. It's a really, really, really powerful tool, very well optimized. And yeah, so that is definitely on one of my picks. The other one is definitely auto settings. Auto settings is really, really nice. I personally tried to make my own settings menu, which is in the current game, which really, really sucks. Auto settings just kind of does it all for you. I know it's a very popular one as well. EMS, save file systems. I've really been enjoying using that. What else? There's just so many good plugins out there. Right now we're using a texture pack for all of the landscape materials, including the voxel materials as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what they're called. I'm really sorry whoever made those, but I'm sure if anyone is really interested in what it is, then please reach out to me on Twitter or something, and I'll find it and let you know. But yeah, there are quite a lot of marketplace assets that without them, couldn't have made the game at all. There's a lot of things where you kind of want the smarter people to do these things for you, and certainly I'm kind of benefiting from these really intelligent people making all these awesome plugins that I would have no idea how to make.
It's interesting that you brought up voxel plugin, because there was actually a question in regards to voxel plugin, and that was just, what was it like, first of all, wrangling voxel plugin? Because I think, as you said before the stream, was just that it's massive. There is so much involved in it. So what was it like kind of trying to figure out how to apply it to your game? And also, have you migrated to version 2?
Yeah, those are two great questions. So first off, when I started working with voxel plugin, it was, a few years ago now. So a lot has kind of progressed since then. I think in its early days, there wasn't anything kind of built for what Hydroneer was doing. So I kind of worked with Firenaz, the creator of the voxel plugin, on how do we, for instance, have multiple of these voxel kind of worlds in one level, should I say? Because in the game you have these various dig sites all around the world. We didn't want to have just one big voxel kind of bounds that stretch across the entire map. It makes way more sense to have multiple kind of levels. So things like that. If you're looking to kind of do a similar thing, you're welcome. For me figuring out all those issues and Firenaz doing all the work. I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, it's very straightforward now. There's plenty of documentation that they've created to help out with that. Not only that, but you've got the guys working, Victor and Victor, who work on it, and they are both very helpful. If there's ever a problem, they can kind of sort it out. There is a free version, and then I think there's a pay-for version as well, which kind of gives you a bit more tools. The second question of am I using 2.0 yet? I'm not. We're still on the previous version, just because of how timelines lined up. I'm not sure if we're going to go to 2.0. I've got 2.0 voxel plugin, which I mentioned, not 2.0 Hydroneer. We might move up to that in the future. I've personally played around with it on a little hobby project, and I'm very impressed with it, especially with kind of things like greedy meshing, which makes the topology of things a lot more optimized. I think that's correct. It basically, to put it in short, it's really easy to use and really, really easy to integrate in your projects. There's even documentation on how to get started with the plugin. And number two is, no, we're still on the older version of the voxel plugin.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, it's a very impressive plugin for sure. So if you haven't checked it out already, I recommend you do. Another question was, did you use any world building tools such as World Machine?
No, I didn't. I'm kind of a bit of a, I guess is the right word, sadist when it comes to making landscape. I just basically just sculpted it all by hand. I think I probably even have a devlog of me sculpting it by hand, and even with the foliage, like painting all of it by hand. I don't really like using any of. Obviously, you can make really nice automation tools for painting landscapes and stuff. But no, I just kind of just do it all by hand. It's kind of relaxing sometimes, Sometimes you just want to chill out and just paint some terrain. So yeah, didn't use any world machine, nothing like that. Literally just kept it as simple as possible. Get some landscape, start kind of playing around with the brushes, and then paint all over it and put some foliage on it. And then 5 days later, you're done.
Yeah, just build a world in 5 days casually.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit painful, but you'll get over it.
Do you have an item that you wanted to add to the game, but you couldn't find a good way to do it or add it?
Not particularly, no. Everything is kind of pretty straightforward. I think we've definitely had things in the past where we've properly had to sit down and all together and be like, how do we make this a thing? Like, what makes sense to it? What makes sense to make this item? And one of them is the conveyor splitter. Basically, it just, you dictate which resource you want to split out of it. Before, in the current version of the game in 1.7, there's like a machine, and it kind of it goes in one door and it comes out the other, and it's got like a little dial on it. It wasn't really good because then whenever we had to add in a new item into a new resource into the game, then we kind of had to add in a new thing on the dial, and it just got a bit complicated, and it also teleported the item. It didn't move it along a conveyor belt, and it just didn't really look that good. So we kind of had to redesign that, thinking about how do we redesign this, and obviously we did it in the end. But we decided that if you have like a little pedestal and you place the item on there, that means that you want to split off of that item. So I think it makes a bit more sense that way. So we did have to think about that quite a while. We had like a few different ideas on the drawing board, and eventually that was just the best way of going about it, I think.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. I mean, it sounds difficult to implement, so.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just follows the same rule set of it's a build item, it uses conveyor belt code, and then it just splits things off that it's told to split off. For the most part, stuff like that. That's why it's really fun to work on Hydroneer, because these new items, they just use old bits of code and just add on a little bit more spice, and that's about it.
Yeah, for sure. There is a question from Snaps, who wants to know when ladders.
So ladders is just okay. You know what? She's asked this because that's exactly the item that like I've wanted to add in but just haven't. It just I don't know why, but every time I go and try and do ladder code, and I know how to do the ladder code, but it just gets confusing, and there's so many things of like, oh, but what if a player is doing this while they're climbing up a ladder, or what if they're doing this and then they climb up a ladder, or I just don't like ladders. We have stairs in the game, and stairs work just fine. Maybe we'll have ladders in the future, but there's a bit of a meme in the community about like when a ladder is going to be added in. Yeah.
So your answer is stairs.
My answer is stairs. Yeah, literally.
Just take the stairs and you'll be fine.
There was a way, actually, if you can get a conveyor belt and rotate it in a way. I don't think you can anymore because we fixed the bug where you could rotate them anyway. And you can make a ladder out of conveyor belts. So maybe someone can make a mod for a ladder. That's kind of always the solution. It's like when the devs won't add something, the modders will. And Hydroneer's got a brilliant modding community. They don't have too many things on Steam Workshop because they like to use their own GitHub, but there are a lot of really, really interesting mods on the game. And whenever I refuse to add something, the modders will usually be like, "Nah, we can do it. We got this. And they have their own little teams, and yeah, it's really cool.
Perfect. Well, there you go. Now you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, they'll throw out ladders. It's fine. It won't be on me anymore.
Another question did pop up for the voxels, though. So, how
Yep.
did you tackle creating the materials for your voxels? And is there anything to be aware of going into it in that regard?
Um, Not particularly. Same way you would make a landscape material. Maybe few slight differences. We do have now, because the voxel the diggable dirt now has levels when you go down, should I say. So we wanted to make this a bit more clearer to players, so we made it so as you dig deeper, like when you get to a certain tier, it kind of changes material and goes a bit darker. So we kind of added that. In fact, I'm not even going to lie, the voxel gut team actually told me how to do that, because I was just like, oh, material code, not really my strong suit. And then they were like, oh, this is how to do it. And I was like, thank you. And it is obviously simple maths that I was very embarrassed that I didn't know how to do earlier. So yeah, it's literally as simple as just you make the same material as landscape, and just kind of throw it in there, really. Literally I've set the material config here. If you're looking at specifics, it's set to RGB, and it uses pretty much the same thing as like the landscape would. So yeah, super simple.
Yeah. So, a couple of questions for maybe some of the difficulties that you've had. And if they're hard to answer or hard to show, that's fine. But
Okay.
figured I'd throw them out there. So when we were talking about multiplayer, you were talking about how, you were kind of forced into the split screen. What troubles exactly did you run into that kind of made that decision come about?
So there was a few issues with the C++ version. Things got a bit complicated too quickly. I think the scope kind of got out of hand a bit more. I was kind of thinking about, I was working on hobby projects at the time, and I wasn't really paying as much attention. I probably could have done a better job of like managing things there. And then there was the case of just basically physics wasn't really working well. Hydroneer is a game which is very, very demanding when it comes to physics. A lot of people kind of compare things to like, oh, Satisfactory's got proper multiplayer. Why can't you do that? Because and the answer is basically because Satisfactory doesn't really have as many physics operations going at the same time. Our conveyor belts have actual items moving along them being pushed. Whereas, Satisfactory, they use more of like an instancing sort of setup there. I can't say the specifics. I've only played it for a while, but I don't know exactly how they set things up. But,
Sure.
Things are a lot more complex when it comes to Hydroneer and physics. You've just got items moving about like crazy all the time. And we couldn't really figure out a way to do this. Number one was take a leaf out of Rocket League's book and use Bullet. In our research, we found out that the ball that they use, I don't think they use it for the players, but I think they just use it for the ball. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I might be misremembering it. Uses this physics engine called Bullet, which is deterministic physics. So that means if I have a pen here and I drop my pen, every time I drop it, even if I hold it in the exact same position, every single time it's going to drop differently. And that's kind of the way that PhysX works, is it's not deterministic. Whereas Bullet is deterministic. When you drop that, every single time it does that, it will happen exactly the same every single time, which is perfect for replicating multiplayer. We kind of just had these issues where as soon as we started doing this in Unreal Engine, we couldn't really get it to work correctly. And it was kind of we just kind of had to throw that one out. We started looking at PhysX. Again, the physics engine that is kind of default with Unreal Engine. We couldn't really get it to work there. The game is just not well optimized enough, and the physics engine it's just too many things that you're passing through a network. We tried a few other kind of hacky approaches of just like, hey, why don't we just not update the players until they kind of need to know? And then you end up with like the item appearing over here for one player and appearing over here for another player. And that obviously was another just problematic thing. And it was a really, really hard time. It wasn't great. It was quite hard on me just thinking about like, I've kind of, I've told all these players that this is what's happening, and, and it wasn't happening. And I take a lot of pride in what I do, and Hydroneer is something that I'm super passionate about, and something that I personally wanted to see, that like authentic multiplayer experience come into the game. Um, and it was really tough. Like, it was a really, really, really tough time to kind of not only not get what I wanted for the game, but also not be able to, be disappointing all these players. And it was a really, really tough time. I just didn't know what to do. Work was pretty painful. It was definitely like one of the hardest parts of game development, that I've kind of, the hardest couple of weeks that I've had in game development. Just because the personal kind of, some gamers aren't particularly nice to developers, let's just say. And but we had to get through it. And one day, myself and my friend Itchy, we were playing. It begins with D, and it's an Unreal Engine game, Dismantle, and they use Steam Remote Play, and we were playing it. And I was like, this is actually brilliant. This is, we're not getting any connectivity issues. It's if you guys don't know, it's like a zombie apocalypse game. It's top down. It's really fun. It's got like some really good humor in it as well. And because it's top down, you can have 2 players on one screen running about. Anyway, it worked really, really well for them. And it was kind of a crazy idea. I was thinking, why don't we just do this? But obviously, Hydroneer isn't a top-down game, so how can we make it work? So split screen was an idea that I had, and I literally called it, I had like this big notes of like how we were going to kind of get ourselves out of this multiplayer problem. And literally plan Z was split screen multiplayer. And we exhausted all the other options, and I just had to make a call. And I feel like it was, at that time, I think it's the right decision to make. I think split screen multiplayer is still very fun, and it enables players to play with their friends. Maybe not in the most ideal scenario, but Steam has done a really good job, especially recently, improving remote play. And yeah, we're really, really happy about how it's come out. So yeah, to answer that question in a very long format, that's basically it.
I think it was a great answer. I think it's good kind of having the history of it, and seeing how it all came to fruition. And also, I apologize for bringing up the trauma of the multi-weekend.
It's all right. I only cry about it like 3 times a day. It's no big deal.
I'll send you a t-shirt as apologies.
Great, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. You can wipe your tears with the t-shirt, and
yeah. Well, I'm hoping that, when 2.0 comes out on Sunday, that we get some really nice reviews. I'm really proud about, keeping that review score up. I think overall right now we're setting on 88% overall and 95 or 94% review score. So, if anyone in the stream is picking it up and considering playing it, then please leave us a review. It really, really does help us out. And, makes me cry a bit less. So,
are you guilting my viewers? Is
I'm
that what you're doing?
A little bit. I'm just leveraging a little bit again.
Dirty tactics, Max.
Awful developer.
That guy. Wow. So, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you ever plan on transferring to UE5? I gotta know. I have to ask. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I will only take it marginally personally.
Okay, so I have never downloaded Unreal Engine 5, and I don't want to download Unreal Engine 5 just now. I'm waiting. You gotta wait for your toast to be cooked before you can eat it, right? Like, it looks awesome. It looks amazing. It looks fantastic. But whenever I have a problem with Unreal Engine, I go on the forums and I find my answer very quick, because loads of other people have had these issues, right? Or whatever issues with the engine. They haven't figured something out, and then someone's figured it out and told them the solution. Well, I want to wait until Unreal Engine's been cooked for a little bit longer before I want to touch that, It just, yeah. Maybe Hydroneer will come to Unreal Engine. Maybe we'll even check out, the new Chaos engine in terms of multiplayer. Maybe that might be a solution to multiplayer. Who knows? We'll have to check it out. But yeah, we'll see. Migrating plugins is another one. Migrating everything back up. But at the same time, you don't want to kind of fall behind and not be on the latest version of the engine, because then things start going wrong. So, there's two sides to it. There's definitely two sides to it. And then you don't get to utilize all the cool things that are in Unreal Engine 5. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure our low poly game will definitely make use of being able to, what is it, Lumen? Lumen? Am I getting mixed up?
Nanite for the
Nanite. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the low poly game will definitely benefit from Nanite.
Absolutely. Don't you think your low poly game needs to be even more low poly? We got you.
Sure.
Come on, Max.
Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine, I guess. I should have just asked this question at the beginning, really, but
yeah, and then just ended the stream as soon as I said that.
Yeah, just it's done now. All right, thanks for coming, I guess. No. All super understandable points, though. So I completely get it, and especially with the plugins, if they haven't upgraded up to UE5 yet, that would cause some issues. So I can compromise. I can come to an understanding, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many good questions. I gotta find the really
Let's go
good
for it.
ones.
Let's do it.
Okay, well, this one is a big question, so I don't necessarily expect you to answer the whole thing all in one.
Is this going to be a no comment kind of question?
It's about the character creator.
Okay.
So they're just curious as to, well, how you made it, really. What were some of the defining functions of it that you wanted, some of the defining features that you made sure were implemented in it? And again, very big question. So don't feel like you have to dive in and show us absolutely everything. But
that's a really good question. Something that I can't really answer because my colleague Joe has kind of been doing all of the character stuff, the models, the animations, everything like that. I can show you that the one thing that was my idea was when you take the character's clothing off, that they have this funny underpants and socks. That was basically it, really. That's my only input I can really have on that question. We wanted the kind of the trousers, as you Americans call them, pants. But we've obviously labeled it trousers because that's the correct word for it. We wanted those to kind of work with everything. So the shirts, the top halves, will always kind of work with the bottom halves. As we in the future expand the amount of clothing that you can have on the character, we want to basically make sure that these are really concise between all of the two, even kind of down to these things where you can see here, when you're not even wearing any trousers, you even got this kind of like a little bit of kind of material kind of hanging off. Even those like tiny little details is something that Joe has been working really hard on, making sure that they work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry to not be able to give any better answer for that. Yeah, I'm just
2-0 no.
Yeah.
2-0.
Sorry, guys.
I know. Look at that. First, you're not going to upgrade to UE5. Now, you can't answer my questions. What are we doing? What are we even doing here? Low bar, Max. I'm kidding. You've been great. So I can appease anybody. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Mostly.
I feel like we need another good question, so then I can kind of like get back up.
Absolutely. So there's gotta be some other really good ones in here. We caught up to all the ones that I highlighted, so I'm like, oh no, I need to go in here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, chat. Send in some questions here. Help me out. Help a girl out. So actually, there's one in here. If you have any advice for students, because you made this game when you were fresh out of university. So what you kind of
Mhm.
have an interesting perspective of someone who was very recently a student when you started making this. So what's some
Yes.
recommendations or some advice you could give out?
That's a really good question. And I think it kind of like applies person to person. I can only really kind of comment on my own experience. And my own experience was a little bit extreme. When I was at university, I would kind of basically just focus on doing outside projects. I think it's really easy to kind of get wrapped up in what's going on at university and having these assignments on. But depending on I guess the difficulty of your course and what's going on with that, I found that all I kind of had to do all I thought that what I could do to kind of be successful in game development was just to do all my uni work, get that all out the way, and then focus on game development. And this only is just going to apply to me. I kind of went a little bit too crazy when I was in university. I used to just kind of get my assignment done. As soon as this like assignment brief was out, then I would do the assignment in the next couple days, hand that in, and then this is really bad advice, but not turn up to any of my university lectures because I was like, I've done the assignment. I don't need to go in. So don't listen to this. I'm not telling you to skip university, college, whatever. But yeah, what I did was essentially just get my university assignments in, get that done, get a nice passing grade, and then just focus completely on game development. And yeah, that's basically what I did. And I came out of university with some okay grades. I've never had a job in game development, so I've never really used those grades. But I just kind of worked my little butt off, and that kind of worked out for me. But yeah, that probably isn't good advice though. So probably don't listen to that. Do your homework and stay in school. But I think understanding that creating a game by yourself, especially when you're willing to kind of cut some corners and keep your scope relatively low, is completely doable. Blueprint has just been great for me, and it's been, I made Hydroneer by myself to launch, and yeah, it's a lot easier than what you think. As long you've got YouTube to help you out, you've got Unreal Slackers, and you got blueprints, and that's all you and sorry, the marketplace, and that's all you need. That's all you need.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's great advice, which is basically be passionate about what you're doing and make sure you focus in on it. And also, you heard it here first, folks. Max said, skip school.
Oh God. Angry parents.
That's our advice. Skip school. Yeah.
Skip school. Yeah, and one thing is as well that I should probably mention as well is you don't have to have a lot of money to also set up a game. I think a lot of people think like, I've got to get funding, I've got to go to a publisher. Like, I didn't go to towards the end of development of towards release, should I say. I got a lot of offers from publishers and stuff, and I didn't really go with them because I thought, maybe I can kind of weave my own path in this. But leading up to that, I didn't have any funding at all, and still completely self-funded on the project. But I think I spent about £1,000 in total coming up to it, which sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, considering how much money games actually cost, it wasn't a hell of a lot. It was basically these Cinti visual asset packs. It was the Voxel plugin was a big part of that. It was hiring some people to do some kind of little jobs, odds and ends here and there. But to be fair, the most of it is pretty financially attainable as long as you're a bit crafty with it and a little bit jammy, and you don't go for the most polished product ever. But yeah, it's totally doable. Is basically the point I'm trying to make on this call is making video games is a lot more simple than you think. Yeah, it's really, really hard, but it's a lot more simple than you think.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, you're making a game.
And it's fun. Yeah, yeah. Any part of it's fun as well, like just making a little character that can run around in a world. So fun. And then when you start letting that character do more and more things, it gets even more fun. So exactly that.
Yeah. Cowboy coding. Get through it.
That's the thing. Yeah, cowboy coding.
Absolutely. Well, with that in mind, Max, do you have anything else that you would like to tell the viewers?
No, I think that's it really. I think we've covered everything, covered all the bases.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, in that case, let me make sure to repeat what you were saying earlier. Everybody who's watching, make sure you keep an ear out for this Sunday, right? When 2.0 drops for Hydroneer. And make sure to wait because there will be a sale.
Yeah, don't buy it yet. You can save some money.
Wait for that 2.0 drop. Make sure you pick that up this Sunday, as well as if you're interested in watching any of these dev vlogs that have been talked about a couple times, make sure you go and watch them. We have a link to those on our forum announcement. We'll also post that link in the chat for you here. Make sure you go watch those. There's tons and tons of awesome content. I've been watching a few of them myself. They're so informative and fun, and there's just so much there. I haven't been able to get through all of it yet. It's just amazing. Absolute library of information there. So make sure you go check that out, as well as go follow them on social media, follow the game, play with it, give them tips, give them reviews, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, absolutely. And tag me as well in some of the cool things that you make in Hydroneer, because there's some interesting things that I've been seeing people make, and I am also curious in seeing what some things are made. But with that, thank you so much for taking the time to come speak with us today and with our community today. And thank you, everyone who came and watched as well. It would be really weird if we held these streams and nobody came. So thank you for taking the time to come and watch this and spend some time with us and hang out. We post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on our YouTube channel and also on Twitch afterwards at the Unreal Engine channels. Don't forget to keep up with us at Unreal Engine on all social media as well. And come say hi on our forums where you can get all the latest news and also find all links associated with today's stream. So make sure you go check that out as well. But again, thank you so much, Max, for coming and hanging out. And I can't wait. I cannot wait for 2.0 over this weekend. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it is very exciting. And it's very stressful, but we're getting there. And we're really proud of what we made.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week.